And if there was one thing I could do in that time machine and go back and tell Dad, hey, cut back a little bit more on these addictions because I would love to have spent more time with you.
Right.
Is that this?
Thanks again for doing this.
No problem, Dr. Prem. Pleasure's mine.
So music has always been a passion, is it? It's something that you've always...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I grew up in a family. Okay, my late dad was with the aviation. So, he started off, in fact, he had his education in Scotland. And it was there that he picked up the guitar and he actually busks, so he was singing to pay through his education as well, right? And then, of course, when he got married to my lovely mom, the musical influence was very much there from the very early beginning, right? So he was always ready to take the guitar and always ready to entertain us, and that's where I kind of got my first influence of this wonderful thing called entertaining people, right? Or rather, just that connectivity through music, Dr. Prem, is words can't describe it.
I can imagine.
I mean, I'm connecting with you. I've never met you. So I dabbled a little bit in school, and that's where my early influences started. But at the age of 15, I represented Malaysia in a international talent singing competition called Asia Bagus. So
I remember that. Yeah.
Yes, correct. So I represented Malaysia in that, and I had my first taste of. I got my first taste of actual limelight, right? Right there. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. I felt right at home. Yeah.
When you speak about it, I can almost sense that excitement in your voice. It's very nice.
Never lost it. I don't think I ever will. I think, I've always believed that the human body beats to a certain frequency, right? And, the heart has a particular tempo. So as long as your heart is beating, you always follow a particular tempo. You cannot run away from tempos and frequencies, and, that's what really music's all about,
It is, isn't it? And just to add to that, music is a form of therapy as well. We have music therapy. We have now there's drums as well. People are using drums, percussions to rhythm the beat. You're right. It helps with create a kind of a structure, and repetitive structure for the brain helps with some form of mental illnesses also. And what we have found over the years is music actually helps to soothe their brain, which goes into a very stimulated hyper mode. So we allow them to wear headphones with music, and they actually calm down. So music is a great form of not only communicating and interacting, but it's a great form of therapy as well. You've had so many successes. You've had, it sounds like you've had your career built, and then you're doing what you want to do, something you're passionate about. Yep. In your life itself, we don't have to go into too much of details, but mental health, how has that had an impact or affected your life, Resh? Has it had an impact?
Look, one of the reasons why I decided to do this interview was the subject matter, mental health, right? Okay. And particularly around the word addiction. Fortunately for me, I was born and raised in a very positive thinking environment. I had a father who brought back various different cultures from around the world while he was flying, with MAS. My mother, on the other hand, was a principal of an international school, right? Yep. And then she worked her way up as being the principal of it for so many years. And so there came a different school of thought. I wouldn't say mom was the disciplinary person in the house. My dad was hard on us too, right? But my mom kind of backed up his logic and his thought process with a more objective orientated kind of an explanation, right? Okay. My siblings and my father and mom, we led a very open table type of concept. So we weren't afraid to talk about anything. And the knowledge and the comfort, I want to say this, the comfort that I had, I'm lucky enough to have, I keep stressing this word, lucky enough to have, was that I always could fall back on Acha and Amma, Now, why I say, and I stress I was lucky enough, is because as I dabbled into this wonderful world, I realized that not everybody grew up in such an upbringing environment or such a positive ecosystem. Exactly. And suddenly I meet friends who had different stories, who came from broken families. I had friends who had no idea who their parents were. I had friends who ran away from the house at a particular age. I had friends suddenly who were at that time dabbling into drugs and who looked at alcohol addiction or cigarette addiction as a form of therapy, as they would say, right? And then I had to kind of like, it was a whole new learning process for me, Prem. I'm going to be very honest with you, right? I've had to take a few steps back, right, to understand that we are all so very different,
right,
our journeys, right, and that I'm lucky, and not everybody's lucky in that sense. And I think if we understand where that comes from, then we can always try and find some form of midpoint, in terms of thought processes and mental therapy, and at the end of the day, we all built differently. At the end of the day, some realization takes place earlier for some people, some realization takes place later. And if I may just say, addiction is something that I have witnessed firsthand. I mean, my late dad, wonderful soul, wonderful person, but he was addicted to his cigarettes, and he did enjoy his drinks, right? So as I was growing up, I saw different characters and personalities just within my father. Fortunate for me, again, here I'd like to stress, he was not when he was jolly high, he wasn't the type that would lose his temper, right?
Okay.
He, in fact, was completely the other extreme. He just became absolutely irritating, you know what I mean? Like suddenly 1 o'clock in the morning, barging in the room, kids, Chakwe down, and me, we're fast asleep. You know what I mean, right? So
I know. My granddad was like that. Okay,
there you go. And then it's like he couldn't take no for an answer. Then he'll sit down and he'll eat with him and he'll feed us and he will. And then before you know it, he's gone to bed, but we are wide awake.
Exactly.
So the life of the party. He was. Yeah. So he was. So I seen that. If there is one thing that if I had a time machine and I could go back and meet my father, I would tell him this: Acha, it's fine to do all these things, but you know what? Control us, have some, I strongly believe that, cigarettes, if you don't control your cigarettes, the lung capacity, deteriorates like nobody's business. You open your body, this beautiful body of yours, to all sorts of diseases, right?
True.
Alcohol, on the other hand, yes, it's okay to dabble in it once in a while. I mean, I don't drink much, right? In fact, I never even touched a drop for so many years, right? And then I found 1 or 2 drinks that kind of like, just takes the edge off once in a while, right? But even then, I don't take wine. I hate the taste of beer, right? I can't understand why Johnny Walker is walking, right? So, seriously, so this is, so these are things. And if there was one thing I could do in that time machine and go back and tell Dad, hey, cut back a little bit more on these addictions, because I would love to have spent more time with you.
Right.
He's left us. I believe that I would have had at least another 5 to 10 years with him.
Maybe.
So yeah, of course. These, what will happen then? That will happen, So it is
right.
It is,
correct.
Right? Yeah. So addiction is one of the reasons why I decided to have this conversation with you as well, Dr. Prem. Yeah.
In fact, I just to share some of our experiences talking about addictions. I mean, as I was saying earlier, we work in the field of addiction. That's basically my specialization. And I see quite a vast variety of group of people. There's no socioeconomic status particularly. There's no like educated or uneducated or less educated people who are addicted. It hits anyone and anybody and everybody. And as you said rightfully earlier, Resh, you said, you don't have to try, you don't have to pick that first string, you don't have to get involved in it. Now, the logic for that is this. See, not everybody gets addicted. All right. Now, addiction is a disease. There's lots of science today that is proven this is a chronic disease which has something to do with the brain, something to do with the reward system in the brain. And some of us have a deficiency in some particular neurotransmitters in the brain, which makes us more vulnerable to becoming addicted when we start drinking or drugging or whatever. See, there are many people, and I'm sure you would know yourself, in the entertainment industry, who dabble with drugs and drink alcohol, but not all of them get addicted. Some do. And these people are actually a group of people who are predisposed. Okay. Now, apparently, there's also a genetic predisposition as well, 30 to 50%.
Right.
So there is a 30 to 50% risk, high risk for those who come, from a line of, who have a line of genes with addictions, addictive disorders. But that doesn't necessarily mean you become one or you will become one. It just puts you at a higher risk. And of course, the life changes, the lifestyle, and the choices you make, as you mentioned earlier, that has a bigger impact in whether you continue to become compulsive or not. So it is a disease, and you will not know whether you are addicted or you are predisposed. Unfortunately, you just don't know until it's too late.
Right.
So why take the risk and start to experiment with all the drugs and all this when you don't really need it? And if you do get addicted to it or become dependent on it, it's quite a task to get out of it. It's very difficult. It's a disease. It has to be treated.